So yes, my name is Ryan the Writer, and we're here today talking about The Last of Us Part 2. So in any case, you've read my title, and of course I'm not just here to bait you, get you mad, and then, not deliver on what I'm going to say. So basically, what's the premise, what's the point? My case is this: The Last of Us Part 2 was a success. Whether you like the game or dislike the game, it's a success either way. So basically all we're talking about is why was it a success? Why was it a success, and why are we saying that? So let me just let me calm your nerves or something before we even start whatever else this video is about. So despite its polarizing reception, The Last of Us Part 2 was a success. What do you mean by that? Basically what we're saying. So The Last of Us Part 2 had basically what you would call, like every other game does, a marketing campaign. And this marketing campaign, Neil Druckmann was basically trying to sell his game by talking to the press and the media about his game, The Last of Us Part 2. And in all this marketing, all this press, all this whatever, all this coverage of the game, he mentioned one thing which I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, that the intentions for his game were to actually, I'm not really saying not the intentions, but you get the point. Well, something he wanted to do with the game, or something the game was going to do inevitably when it came out. Something it was going to do inevitably when it came out was to either anger some fans or make them like the game, either way. And he kind of called it out. He was like, yeah, this game is going to piss off some people, make some people like it. And yeah, so that's basically what he said. And as we can see, with The Last of Us Part 2, it's been 5 years since it came out. It has done pretty much just that. So the first thing we're starting off with is Joel's death. And, in any case, I find it was done well enough. That's basically the main point that puts the audience into two camps of hating the game and liking the game. So again, that's part of its success. You get the point. Yeah, I've said it so many times, you understand what I'm saying. So basically, Joel's death, I think, was good enough, but it could have been handled a bit better. Also, something I'd point out about it is Abby and Joel are actually both heading to a ski lodge when they find each other. So most people kind of criticize the game for having Joel coincidentally meeting Abby like in a very chanceful moment, but I actually think Abby was telling Owen on the cliffside, overlooking that the snow and whatever. Where then she was like overlooking that ski lodge, and she was like, okay, we can go there and interrogate someone and see if we can find Joel in that case. So basically, and Joel was heading to the same ski lodge, so it's not a coincidence. They're going to the same place. It's not a coincidence that they met up in any case. So that's kind of how I'd look at it, rather than they just met up by chance. There's actually a very high chance of them meeting since they're going to the same place, since Tommy and Joel's patrol route included that same ski lodge. So you get the point on that. So that's basically, and Joel's death was, in any case, I believe it was handled well enough. Like, I think to get that maximum effect of dividing the audience, it was handled well enough, but it could be better, and I'll get to that at the latter part of this video, as you'll see as it unfolds. Another point I'd like to also make, because this is not chapter 2 or something, let's call it chapter 2, fine, is this Abby's section, or Abby's arc in the game. Let's just call it that, the one in Seattle. So this is Abby's story in any case, and so now talking about that, so let's get down to it. Let's recount Abby's story and how it goes. So basically, the loss of her dad in storytelling would be like this moment of introducing us to the character's flaw. Not really their flaw, but their trauma. It's called their trauma, not their flaw. It's more of a trauma. This is what you call the character's ghost, or their kind of like their backstory. In any case, the ghost is mostly what you would call something in storytelling as the thing that makes a character have whatever beliefs they have, which may be negative beliefs. And in this case, that's kind of like a lie. But this would be like this basically is Abby losing her dad. It causes her to believe that basically Joel must die, or at least she must. Basically, it starts off the cycle of revenge in Abby's mind. It makes her want to go and pursue whoever killed this father figure, this dad of hers. So she basically goes out looking for this person from that day on. That's basically her ghost It's her trauma story. You get the point. So basically, that's the beginning of the game. That's basically that's the beginning of not the game but her story. So basically, it cuts to killing a scene of the scene of her killing Joel, and the scene of her killing Joel is like her inciting incident into this story. Now, there's a whole thing that happens before this, a bunch of flashbacks, which detail her life before this particular incident. About two of them in the game, but this is the moment where basically the story begins for Abby. Is when she kills Joel, and that's basically the inciting incident. That's something in story. That's basically where the story goes up like this, kicks off, and then that's when the story begins. So that's what the inciting incident in her story is her killing Joel. So basically, the point of Abby's story is for you to empathize with her. The point of Abby's story is for you to basically empathize, find more of a human side to her, whatever you want to call it. And so basically, that's the point of her story. And this is also another point in storytelling, which is the ending of the story. If you want to write stories or something, the one great idea you can have is to write the ending of the story and then build your story towards that ending, if that makes any sense. So basically, you write the ending of the game, or let's say the story in this case, and then you build it towards that. And in this case, what is Abby's ending? What's ending to her story is her fighting Ellie in the theater. That's the ending of it. That's at least a climactic ending of her story. That's a climactic ending, and then there's also a resolution behind it. But let's focus on the climactic ending for now. So yeah. So the last point I want to make on this game before it's called Chapter 3. Why not? So basically, we're talking about Ellie and Santa Barbara. So basically, let's get down to that. Let's go down to the ending of the game. This is the epilogue of the game, as people would call it. This is in my ideal version, it's like Act like 3 or something. Not really Act 3, or like the latter parts of Act 2 or something like that. A normal storytelling structure. I don't know how many acts. It kind of has like 5 acts. This game, but this game kind of has like 5 acts. I believe I haven't studied it that deeply to that extent. But you kind of, I think I've seen people call it like a 5-act structure as well. So it's basically like Act 4 of that 5-act structure. What acts are basically divisions in a story, basically a sort of events that happens in a story, and they each have their own kind of message within, not really message, but even sort of like point or purpose within the story. So at least the overall story in that case, that's what an act kind of does. It kind of divides the narrative into, at least a story, and sort of like understandable or easy to digest parts, basically parts which have each their own sort of like arc going on within them. But anyways, besides that, just getting down to it. So Ellie, in this case, is in Santa Barbara. The first plot point that happens here is she spares the Rattler guy. She spares him. I think it's a mistake in some way, but we'll get to that a bit later. Let's hold on for that. So basically, Ellie spares the Rattler guy, that guy who looks like this big hunky guy. Is he hunky? I don't know if he's hunky or not. Or is it's a slab of meat. There's this big guy, fat. I don't know if he's fat. Let's just say he's like just a big guy. I don't know what to call him. Anyway, the guy with the glasses, and his apprentice, his accomplice, his apprentice as well. But anyway, they kind of come and find Ellie strung up, and they cut her down. And she falls down, and she eventually kind of is able to subdue them. And she points a gun at one guy gets killed, the smaller guy gets killed. Then she points a gun at the other Rattler guy, who's now lying on the ground. He's like, please don't kill me. That's what I'm talking about. So basically, Ellie at this point is able to pin him into that corner, subdue both of them, and pin that guy into that corner. So Ellie then at that point, she goes on and fights her way through until the point she makes it the climax of the game, where she's at the beach. She's at the beach, the coast area. The pillars is what the game refers to it as. And so she lets down Abby. They go and fight in the waters. And at this point, she spares Abby. That's the second major plot point, is she spares Abby. And so basically, at this point, Ellie is, that's the climax of her story, and that's kind of where the biggest plot point in the game. That's at least the climactic point of the game. Kind of is at sparing Abby. So now I've discussed all the points in the game, and we've talked about where the game kind of falters in some areas. Remember, the first one was basically a Joel, you get the point anyway. So basically, there's Joel's death, Abby's story, and of course, the ending of the game. So this is so basically the here's my surprise for it's like the bonus ending of the video is we're gonna actually rewrite the entire story. Well, not the entire story. I can't do all that. But at least the main criticisms we've made, we're going to redo them and rehash them, rewrite them basically, rewrite them and make them sound, feel, and if essentially kind of come off a bit better. Not really come off, but just kind of at least in line with the main premise of the game, which is kind of make people like and hate the game at the same time, be it cause division and all that, cause a point of division. So the first part we're going to talk about is on Joel's death. So I believe for a fact that it was handled quite well enough in terms of the criteria we're talking about in this case, having some kind of a balance between the audience liking the game and the audience hating the game. So in this case, Joel's death in that case was handled quite well. So a lot of people hated it, a lot of people liked it, or thought he was sad, or resonated with them, however you want to put it. So in any case, yeah, that's just that. So in any case, it was handled quite well, but I think it could be better. I think I could make that divide even greater, or at least kind of make the power of it even greater. You get the point. The effect of it even, let's call it the effect of it even greater, yeah. So in any case, Joel's death, how would it go? In my version of the story, I would say that we have Abby sections. We're going to actually get rid of those sections for this rewrite, and actually we're going to have the player play as Joel in place of Abby's sections. So that's basically it. We're going to have the player play as Joel in Abby's sections. That's how we're going to handle this one. And you might think, okay, it's not just making the audience happier. Why I don't see how it's causing that kind of divide or making people angry and making people happy at the same time. It seems like you're giving the people what they want. They're gonna play more as Joel, so you're not giving them more Joel. In this case, if you play more as Joel, the intended effect of some of Joel's death, part of that was the developers wanted to make you feel like you're responsible for Joel's death by playing as Abby, the person who kills him. Then you just feel responsible for it. But I actually think it would be more effective if you played as Joel for this to achieve the same effect. Because if you really think about it, when it's kind of like Abby, it's not Abby, but when it's Joel in this case, if you're playing as Joel and you save Abby, you save your killer. I think that will be more effective in making you feel responsible for Joel's death, for his death. It's like you're playing as him, and you get the point. You save, the person who's gonna kill you later on. I think that very much would create a better effect of making the player feel guilty for what they did. So in any case, or at least just making them feel kind of bad or stupid, or at least just kind of feeling like they're responsible. Yeah, like they're responsible at the end of the day for Joel's death. I think that would be more effective than just playing as Abby. In this case, I think it would be better. I also don't see the need for playing as Abby in the beginning sections of the game. They also say it's meant to build empathy with the character, but I only think trying to build empathy or likability with the character only makes sense after she's already killed Joel and you already see her this person they hate. I see it having more of a point to try and empathize with her or like her after that initial action has taken place, rather than trying to fit it in before the event. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that, but in any sense, I hope you get what I mean. So that's what I'll do. Play as Joel. Now we're on to Abby's section. So in this case, Abby's section is about, in the game, the way it is, it's about giving her redemption. And the way it is, the way it's portrayed is we're giving her redemption. That's what Druckmann and the people at Naughty Dog, the writers at Naughty Dog, decided to do, is give her redemption. I actually disagree with that trajectory of her arc, because it's not a bad decision to give a character like that redemption. In any case, any character is okay with a redemption, deserves one, I don't know. But I think in Abby's case, she's given it too soon. Like, she just killed Joel, and now she's getting a redemption. I think that's what upsets a lot of people about it. It's fine, it upsets some people, language some people. That at the same time also makes some people like her, regardless. There's still that aspect of you got what I mean at this point, the divide or whatever. So in any case, I think that how do I say it? I think that her arc would be more about something. It would be better or something else, not a redemption per se. But in my idea, I'd say more of a remorse arc. She's feeling remorse for her actions rather than getting redeemed of them or being redeemed of them. If that makes any sense, I think redemption would make sense for something way later on if they make a part 3, and then that's when she has a redemption. I think that would have made more sense rather than giving a redemption right after she does a seemingly unforgivable thing. Is now she just immediately gets forgiven. It's like it kind of takes away some kind of sense of suspense and all that. Like she just did this seemingly awful evil act, and then the audience, probably in any other kind of story, would be wondering, would she really be able to get back from this and all that? And then like immediately there's answered, oh, now she immediately gets redemption. So yes, she does get a redemption after all. She does get to do good by what she did wrong just right away, and you kind of feel like this is meant to be some kind of suspense while the audience is asking themselves, will she get redemption? Will she be able to right her wrongs? That space for that suspense is never given any room to breathe, and I think it's very much needed, especially in a story like this. Of course, maybe she wouldn't get that redemption in this particular story if her story isn't about it already. Again, I'm pointing out like a part 3 would have that, for example. But that's kind of just the point. I think even stretching out a redemption, or at least a question of redemption, to a later story, a later title, a later game in the series, a later game in the series, yeah, would kind of make more sense. A later like kind of story, a later story in The Last of Us would make sense rather than just immediately giving it to her or to Abby, just like that. Just there's your redemption. Take it right after you've seemingly just done the worst you could possibly do. It doesn't make any sense to me anyway. So I would just say that, I would just say, I think her story should be about remorse. Like she should be feeling remorse for her actions, which will then make her feel, at least will actually make her like be worthy of redemption or whatever. However you look at that. In any case, that space for suspense, it would be filled with a redemption story. So what does a redemption story look like? Let's get to that. And then the last part is the ending. I think the ending where Abby, or at least Ellie spares Abby, is pretty okay. I don't see any problems with it. And I would just say that, I think they made a good call with that one. It's still a very polarizing thing. Like after people say, she should have let him go. The other half are mad, or she shouldn't have let him go. And she just killed or whatever. So I think it is still very polarizing ending in that sense. So it works at that degree at least, and I think that could be made better if, let's say, Ellie had some kind of there's anticipation towards Ellie letting go of Abby. In this case, it's in like when she leaves the farm, maybe Dina says something that kind of inspires Ellie to forgive. So this is actually Ryan from the future. Pointed out something about I pointed out something about what Dina says to Ellie as she leaves the farm. Actually, I took some thought about this, and she could have said something like, you should forgive Joel, or Joel should be forgiven, or you should let Joel go, or just let Joel go. I think that's what something she can say. Just let Joel go, or something that alludes to forgiving Joel in some kind of a way. It could show just how much Dina is able to read into Ellie's emotions in that sense, or intentions, as to any of the romance or whatever. But in any case, I just think that was that too loud? In any case, I just think that let me put this back down. That could have been something. So yeah, like that just mentioned something that kind of ignites that idea of maybe can spare Abby, and that just kind of goes on in her arc, and maybe she even spares some people to some degree, like she spares some people to some degree, like this person, the Rattler guy, the huge guy, and then his accomplice, anyway, kind of come to cut her down after she gets trapped or strung up in that trap and all that. So basically, they cut her down, and she fights her way through them, but then she ends up killing the guy at the end, the big guy who looks like, I don't know who, Doug the Bounty Hunter or something like that. She shoots him after he says, "I swear," and promises her that that's where Abby is, and I think she'll just let him go at that moment to sort of almost like making peace and with all that kind of violence and all that. At least in the sense that the guy actually says, "I swear," and that kind of recalls to Ellie. Oh, Joel said the same thing to me, so that's why she shot him. Basically, I don't swear to Ellie or something. I don't swear to her. You know what I mean? About stuff like don't swear to her basically, and she kind of shot him for that. I think she just that's also sort of like a way of almost like forgiving Joel to some degree, is not shooting that Rattler guy. It's just letting him go. That's not like the anticipation to her letting go of Abby at the end of the game. And I think that could have worked better if there was that anticipation, if that makes any sense. And that's just that. So that's about it. In any case, that's all I have to say. You enjoyed what I talked about, be sure to give it a like. Subscribe is fine, why not? So in that case, have a good one. Been good talking.